Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. We're really, really excited to bring you all this webinar and be able to have Jacob here today. Jacob is one of the top immigration lawyers in America. He has helped millions of people around the globe to achieve legal status in the country. And we're so grateful that he's taken time out of his day to be here with all of you. He's going to share some wonderful insights on how to expedite your case and potential options to move your case forward. Jacob is a longtime immigration lawyer based in San Diego. He has several offices across the country. He's also a tech entrepreneur, and he's very active online on different social medias and YouTube. He's helped millions of people by producing value-add content for immigrants all across the globe. And we're really excited to bring him on stage and be able to hear some of his thoughts today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you guys for being here. It's a pleasure. We've got so many people here. I can see the comments rolling. How you doing, Matt?
Doing really well. Happy to be here with you, Jacob.
Excellent. Both coasts. We cover both coasts. I'm in California and you are in New York.
Yep.
Exciting. Now, I'm very excited for this. I mean, I think it's, we're getting both in my practice and I'm sure with Lawfully about people are just tired of the visa delays, and that's what Lawfully is all about, to help people track their cases. And so we'll try to give a bit of a glimpse as to what potentially some people can do to try to move the needle and give people some hope and options. It's always good to understand what is possible, even though our system is not perfect. So yeah, let's get started. Perfect. Matt, did you want to maybe say a few words about Lawfully before we start?
For sure. Yeah. So
there's a lot of people here that came from our channels as well, and they may not be familiar with Lawfully. So maybe a couple of words before we push through. And obviously, we are so grateful to have this collaboration on our first webinar.
Yeah, so Lawfully is an app for tracking your case once it's been submitted to the government. So we all know that the government is not very transparent with timelines. They don't give insight or visualizations and help you understand when your case might be approved. So we have taken our special approach to pulling data from all across the web and different sources to be able to give folks better access, better information, and visualizations around when they can expect things to move forward with their case. So I'm sure many of you are using Lawfully. If you're not, definitely download the app, add any case numbers that you have for active cases for you or your friends or family. I'd love to be able to help you to estimate when your case might be approved. And yeah, really excited to be here. And like Jacob said, we're based in New York. We also have an office in Seoul, Korea, and really excited for what the future holds. And hope we can continue to help all of you with your cases and continue to launch product that's going to help you in your journey.
Excellent. And Lawfully is a great product, and I think it's helpful both for clients and the attorneys that are servicing them, because it gives us a lot of insights. All right, guys, so let's jump into this, and we're gonna make it very interactive, not more of like a school lecture, but I'm gonna try to give you as much data as possible, make it concise, not too boring, and then we'll leave some questions at the end. We'll keep it to the hour. And we know that it's the beginning of more events like this in the future, and you'll be able to send us requests for topics. All right. So basically, when we go through the immigration process, that doesn't matter where you are. There are different agencies that are involved. And I think it's really important to understand which agency is controlling your case, because then you're going to know who to approach and who to contact if you have a problem in your case. So typically, if you're inside the United States, you'll be dealing with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which controls most petitions that are processed inside the United States. But also, It processes cases that are about to start and eventually will end outside of the United States. A typical immigration process, if you are an immigrant and you're going to be outside of the United States because you don't have a visa to come to the United States, or because it's going to take a while for your case to be adjudicated, the way the process is going to work is that you're going to start with the USCIS in the US. Typically, if it's a family petition, many of you are filing I-130s to bring family members over here. You will go with USCIS first. And once the petition is processed with USCIS, then the case will move to the State Department. Typically, it will go to the National Visa Center, which is an agency that will continue processing applications to help U.S. embassies in the final processing of your application. And again, today we'll talk about options to move your case faster, both with USCIS, but also with the State Department, mostly with the National Visa Center. I think it's important to understand this matrix, how it works, because a lot of people always get confused and they mix the agencies. They think, well, my case is sitting at the US Embassy and they don't want to give me a visa, when in fact, your case is still with the National Visa Center. Some people complain, well, my visa is not going anywhere, where you're ending with the USCIS. And we'll talk about the different processes and how you can actually move your case, try to move it a little bit faster when it's stuck with the different agencies. But if you're going through the immigration process, you will be going through these agencies, starting with USCIS, moving through the National Visa Center, and eventually your case will go to the US Embassy most of the time to get your visa, whether it's a non-immigrant visa or an immigrant visa. That's the circle, and that's how our immigration system is working in the moment. And I think it's important for you to understand that and know where your case is at any given moment. So essentially, and it's funny because this is a picture, shows you what a single day of files looks like at one of the service center, and this one is in California, but it's probably worse in Texas Service Center or Nebraska. But because they have so many cases, the volumes of applications that are going through the system, it's hard for the USCIS and National Visa Center or any other agency to process cases. What happened before 2020, before the pandemic, is that, we still had backlogs, and some years were better than others. But after the pandemic, the amount of backlogs that we see, specifically with the National Visa Center, is devastating. More than 300,000 cases are sitting there pending. USCIS is definitely doing better. People are filing I-130s, I-134s A's, which we'll talk about it as well. These petitions are taking forever because they have so many cases that they have to process. And right now, they're digitizing the system. They're trying to be, more efficient by, scanning cases, putting cases on file. But still, they're dealing with paper. What you see in this picture right now is the grim reality of most processing centers in the United States and abroad. And to be able to deal with these backlogs, it's important to understand that what is the role of when you file your cases, whether you're using an attorney or doing this on your own. If you do everything right from day one, your cases will go faster. If there are mistakes, if you're not filing cases properly, if you're not sending all the documents from day one, you will cause your applications to end up like this at processing center, sitting and waiting for officers to adjudicate. So I would say, before we even talk about how to expedite your cases with the different agencies, I would say one thing: try to file your applications properly from day one. Put all the supporting documents properly. Make sure you send it to the correct place. Make sure you use the correct filing fees. Make sure that you submit everything they need from day one. By doing that, you will minimize the chances of them requesting more information or sending your case to a place where they'll be sitting there stuck waiting for adjudication. So that's the first thing I can tell you. If you want to avoid any delays, do things properly. Now, let's talk at the first agency, USCIS. How can you actually expedite a case with USCIS? Well, there is a way to do so if you meet certain criteria. Again, USCIS, it's not always easy to do so, but it's possible. We've been able to adjudicate and expedite I-130s quite often if clients meet certain of these requirements. So the first requirement is severe financial loss to a company or person. So for example, let's say you are, you're a business owner and you're trying to with a family member, and you have to go back and forth. Your company depends on you. We can show that unless your family member is going to come right now, bad things will happen financially to you personally as a U.S. citizen. That's one way. Or emergencies, maybe this situation of war or instability, political instability in a home country. This just happened now. You need to get that person out of there. That's an emergency. If it's a nonprofit organization that is involved in the case, if it's for government interest, public safety, national interest, those could be reasons why you could expedite with USCIS. And very common USCIS error, clerical error. For example, you send a case, instead of sending you a 10-year green card, they're sending you a 8-year green card, 2-year green card. You can send it back, request it to be expedited because you need your green card. It was their mistake. They should fix it. If you meet any of these requirements, you can expedite your case with USCIS, and you should, because there's no reason for you to sit there and wait a year or even more if you meet any of these requirements and you can try to expedite. Now, if you meet those requirements, how do you actually do that? And most people get confused about how to expedite with USCIS. They try to email them and go online. The best way to do it is that, first of all, obviously get your receipt, have a case number. Then you call the 800 number. That's probably the most efficient way to expedite. You call the 800 number and you request a tier 1 or tier 2 officer, and you explain to them the reason. Again, one of the reasons that I mentioned to you before, if you fit any of these reasons, then they will give you a case number, and you'll be able to track the expedite requests online. They'll send you an email a few days after with instructions about what to do next, and if they need any more documents from you. And finally, you'll receive a decision, typically within 30 days. This is the best way to do so. And again, many people who are waiting for I-130s typically are in need to expedite. This is the most common one that we see, and it's been effective. We'll talk about other applications right in a second. Many of you are here filing the humanitarian parole requests, and we'll talk about those as well, whether we can expedite or how we can do that. But these are the most efficient ways to do that. And remember, I believe that even if you're late for this presentation, or if you're not currently here, if you sign up, you should be getting an email with a recording of this presentation. So don't worry about taking notes or screenshots, because you'll get a copy of this. Now, what other ways, in addition to what I just mentioned to you by calling UCAs, you can try? Another way which we help our clients sometimes is USCIS expedite requests using a congressional assistant. So in every district where you reside, you've got members of Congress that are part of that. You can contact them, usually a local congressman, and they have an immigration liaison unit. And typically what they do, they'll assign a person to work with you. They'll email USCIS or the embassy or the NVC and try to see if they can move your case forward if you meet any of the requirements. Again, it's not always working, but it's definitely worth to try it, specifically in cases where you feel they're stuck, you're not getting answers on your own from the USCIS number. Please use your congressional assistance. That it works. It definitely works. Another way what people are not aware of is using the USCIS Ombudsman's office. The Ombudsman's office is an independent body that works with a government agency, with USCIS, and they will help applicants and employers wherever cases get stuck, whenever there's issues with USCIS. You can contact them for free. There's an online form. You can just Google USCIS Ombudsman's Office. There's a free form. I believe it's called DS 7001, and you can complete the form. You put your case number. You explain what the problem in your case is, and the Ombudsman's office can typically get involved and help. They definitely helped us a lot with some I-130 cases and many other cases that were stuck. People are not able to get their parole documents to travel, and it's an efficient way. Most people are not aware of it, so please use that. It's free, and if you have a good reason, they can help you. But again, it's good for you to know all the options, because, like I said, I see in the comments some people say the congressmen's are useless. Maybe they're not always helpful, but in some cases, and you'll see why. Because if you do all these things, the congressman, the ombudsman, eventually, if we have to take extreme measures like litigation, which I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, if you can show them that you've done all these things, it can make your case more efficient if we decide to go and sue them in court. So now we're done with USCIS. You tried everything. Your case is now finally approved and is now moved to the National Visa Center and on its way, finally, hopefully at some point, to an embassy. And as I mentioned to you, the National Visa Center is almost kind of like a holding facility. Once your case is approved with USCIS, it will move to the National Visa Center. At that point, they'll ask you to submit more forms, DS-260, more supporting documents, financial documents. And essentially what they do, they prepare, they get your case ready, document you complete for a visa interview when a visa interview is ready. So your case is sitting there in a National Visa Center, and finally you become documentary complete, and still nothing happens. Your case is not being scheduled for a visa interview, and you sit there and you're watching all these YouTube videos of all these lawyers, and nothing happens. So I would say typically once your case is documentary complete and 6 months pass and you still don't have an interview within those 180 days, I would consider at least communicating with National Visa Center to see if you can expedite your case. Expedite requests are only sent to the National Visa Center. You cannot call them anymore. You used to be able to call them in the past, but you cannot call them anymore. There is a way to send them an email, and I'll explain it in a second. And you have to have a good reason why you will expedite your case with National Visa Center. Typically, it will be hardship to the U.S. citizen spouse first. So if the U.S. citizen spouse has certain hardship, maybe some medical conditions, maybe some financial loss at work, not able to travel as often to visit, something that kind of creates issues in their daily life. It's hardship that we can show. Those have been very helpful for us to expedite our clients' cases. Then we can also look at what happens with the beneficiary overseas. Maybe there's an issue over there, dangerous situation in the country. They need to get him out of there. NVC, we're taking that into consideration as well. Once we submit those expedites, typically within 60 days, if they approve it, you will have confirmation, and then they will be able to send the case to the U.S. Embassy that is assigned to your case. So remember, a lot of people are just sitting there and waiting for the NVC to move forward, and they're not really taking action. You can do something. You can try to expedite at least once. So again, to be able to do so, you need to have obviously your I-130 approved. You cannot contact the National Visa Center if your I-130 is not approved. Another very important thing is that remember that if you are, let's say, a beneficiary of an approved I-130 for, let's say, a brother-sister petition, or if you are an adult child of a U.S. citizen, you also have to make sure that your visa category is current. So, the visa bulletin comes out every month, and it tells us which cases are current. So, for example, if you are a spouse of a green card holder and you just filed your case a year ago, you still have another year, for example, to wait until the visa numbers have become current. You cannot expedite your case with the National Visa Center, because the National Visa Center is going to say, well, we can't expedite your case because there's no visas to give you. So you have to be patient and wait at the National Visa Center until your visa becomes current. So that's very important. So an approved I-130, you must have a current visa. You must have a case which is documentary complete at the National Visa Center. And of course, once all those things are met, then you still have to meet the requirements, which is a medical emergency, urgent humanitarian reasons, some financial hardships. Maybe the child is going to age out. This is a very common reason. So you submitted your petition before your child was 21. Now your kids are going to turn 21 very soon. You're worried that they're going to be separated from your petition. that's a good reason for you to communicate and request for them to expedite your case so that the embassy will schedule you for an appointment before your child turns 21. That's a very good one. We use that as very often to expedite. And of course, sometimes when they make errors, they send you your receipt and they misclassify your child in a different visa category. You have to immediately send it to them so they can fix it and schedule the whole family for an interview. So then the family is not going to be separated. But again, most people are not even aware that you can do that you can actually communicate with the National Visa Center and try to expedite your case. So how do we do that? So I explained to you before how you can expedite your case with the USCIS. Now, how do we expedite your case with the National Visa Center? Well, what you have to do is you obviously prepare a statement with a couple of supporting documents about why you need the expedite. So as I mentioned before, whether you have an emergency, whether you have some kind of an issue back home, maybe there was an error on part of NVC, maybe your child is aging out, you put all this in a statement with a few supporting documents. Then, and the only way you can do this, and you send an email to the National Visa Center, NVC Expedite at state.gov. It's the only way to expedite by sending them an email. And you put the case number on there, you put the invoice number, and you email it to them, and then you wait for them to give you a response. And typically they'll respond within 30 to 45 days. And if it's approved, your case will be sent to the embassy for an expedited interview. Here's a few examples just want to show you what happens when you send the expedite. They show you that you send the email, they're reviewing your application and asking you to be patient. And then if it's approved, then they'll send you an email saying that they accepted this case for expedite processing and that your case is now going to the embassy for an interview, which is what we want, obviously. All right, so I know a lot of you guys are asking here about the I-134A process. And Matt, maybe we can talk about this because, like I said, this is something we're doing for you guys based on comments that we received. The most important things that we got before the webinar is that people wanted to know how to move their cases forward at the National Visa Center stage. The number one comments we're getting. People are feeling frustrated, not getting interviews. So hopefully the information I gave you so far is helpful. And the I-134A, this is something that most people do it on their own. We don't get involved in this. It's a fairly simple process that people do. But people are frustrated because it's taking forever and they want to know if they can expedite. So Matt, from what you've seen from the tracking side of Lawfully, we've got a lot of people that are filing for these cases, right now.
Yeah, so we know it can be frustrating because the demand for the I-134A program, it's a humanitarian parole program under the Biden administration for several different countries. Right. And the demand is much higher than the allotment that they have currently set. And so the way that USCIS and CBP have set it is that they will approve 30,000 cases a month, and they'll do 15,000 at random and another 15,000 by filing date. And so it's frustrating because we know some folks have been waiting for, I heard about someone today who has been waiting for over 400 days. And that's super frustrating to have to wait so long. Unfortunately, the government has not opened up a path to expedite the I-134A. However, there are several strategies that we're going to talk about. There's some things that you can do with the Ombudsman's office. And then ultimately, if you're still not seeing movement, then you do have litigation.
We'll talk about litigation.
Jacob's going to talk about.
And remember, Matt, I think the one important thing about this program is that, it's a humanitarian program that the government did almost like as not as a favor. I wouldn't say as a favor, but they're trying to help people get out of there. So in a way, it feels like they're saying, well, we're helping, we're doing our best, but we can't be as fast. So you can't complain about it in a way. But at the same time, people are relying on this. People are, calling family members. Family members are selling their properties over there, getting out of there, trying to come to the US because it's so dangerous. So in a way, it's kind of like, well, you're giving us the door, but we can't open it as fast, which is not fair. And I think, and again, and I'll mention to you again, when you're doing those I-134s, make sure you follow the instructions to the T, because any mistake, Matt, one of the biggest reasons why there's so many delays is because people make so many mistakes on these forms, and they just sit there until USCIS officers are looking at them. So so again, please follow the instructions. It's not that complicated. Again, most attorneys don't get involved in completing those forms, but please do so in a careful manner so you don't get into this mess. Now, normally, as you said, Matt, there's not a way to expedite those I-134As. However, there is an option to get assistance from the ombudsman specifically for these kind of cases. What have you seen people have been doing in that category?
So really, the three options that folks have that have done I-134As with the Ombudsman's office are, first, correcting any errors that have been made on the initial application. So like Jacob said, when these applications are initially submitted, you need to triple, quadruple check it, because if there are errors, it makes it easy for the government to delay their approval. However, if there is an error that you're aware of, such as an email address or name, you can reach out to the Ombudsman's office to correct those errors. The second is when we've seen some situations where a family member has not been approved while the others have. For example, say the father isn't approved, but the mother and the children are approved. If that happens and you're in a situation like that, you can reach out to the Ombudsman's office, and they should be able to help get approvals for the other family members that are still waiting. And then the third scenario is that you need to pay close attention to your email with these applications. And if sometimes USCIS makes mistakes, it might mean their system's down. And so if you haven't got an email, then you can reach out to the Ombudsman's office, and they should be able to track what's going on and what's the latest.
Right.
We have a few options as well to just, it's critical to stay on top of your case. And so definitely be monitoring your Lawfully app, and turn on push notifications. Make sure you're watching for these time-sensitive updates, because if you get an email or if there's a change in your case status, you want to be on top of it as quickly as possible. And then you definitely watch out for these USCIS emails. They're going to send emails to ask for additional information. They might send an email that requests you set up your account and you complete the attestation, and then also for decision notices such as confirmations or non-confirmations.
Right.
So USCIS has said that, don't reach out to them if it's only been 180 days. After the 180-day initial period, you can submit requests with USCIS to ask about the latest status of your I-134A.
Yeah, the reason why they do that probably is because, this, like I said, 30,000 a month is a lot. They are, even though they are trying to automate their system, it's still a lot of inquiries. So they're trying to kind of pace people from doing this. I think it's important for people maybe even setting up a separate email account just for the notification, so you don't mix it up with your current email, and set up you can set up like a Gmail just for that, so you can track it easily and not miss any of the email. Because a lot of the people that are complaining is that they're not seeing the notifications, they miss the confirmation notices, and it becomes a mess because then they have to go back and ask for it, and it delays the case. So that would be a good tip. And of course, monitor your progress on Lawfully. It's been one of the best, in fact, the best tool out there to be able to do that, specifically for this particular application. It seems like very stressful. Okay, so we talked about, and we'll get you guys to ask questions. We'll obviously we'll try to wrap this up and leave enough time for questions. But you've done everything. You did the inquiries, USCIS, NVC, and still nothing happens. They're not. Your case is still stuck. You're not moving forward. And cases where people stuck are very common, where people apply for their citizenship, for example. They go to the interview, and there's no decision. Months go by, no decision. Those are very good cases for lawsuits, because by law they have to give you a decision within 120 days. But these mandamus cases work in many. You can sue U.S. government agency like USCIS, you can sue the court. You can sue the embassy. You can sue the NVC. The only purpose of this Mandamus lawsuit is one thing: is to force the government to do their job. It's not to give you a money award. You're not trying to punish anyone. It's a very simple action that the law allows you to take advantage of. That is essentially saying, listen, we just want you to do what you're supposed to do, and you're delaying our application. You don't give us any answers. It doesn't mean if you sue them on the mandamus, they're going to give you a favorable decision. No, but they'll give you a decision. That's really what people need, specifically in those citizenship cases. Sometimes I-130s are taking forever. A lot of people who are pending their visa appointments forever. People stuck in admin processing for no reason. Lawsuits have been very helpful. And that's the purpose of mandamus. And we're going to talk about it now. When everything else fails, what do we do next? So what kind of cases obviously can mandamus help? And some people never heard about this. They didn't know. People are not aware that they can do that. So it can be almost any delays in immigration process. It can be, and again, those are delays which are outside of normal processing. And you can see the processing times on the website. And in many times, it's definitely way outside. So again, a lot of people are asking here about different cases. It can be AB5s, it can be I-130s, I-360s. People are pending their appeals, I-290s. This is just a sample of applications. K1s, N400s, 751s. These are very, the common cases that we take to litigation that are being delayed right now. But it can be almost any application that is being processed with immigration. And some of the questions that people ask: will the government deny the case if you file a mandamus? It's a very common question. People say, well, what if I sue them right now? They're going to deny my case because they're going to be retaliating. No, because this is going to a federal court, and they're essentially just looking at whether the government delayed your case for no reason and forcing them to give you a decision if in fact they did it for no reason, right? So this is something that the government cannot do. There's no retribution just because you filed for mandamus. It's very important to be aware of that. Another question people ask is, can the federal court force the government to approve your case? So no, if your case is not a good case, then your case will be denied. But the government is going to give you a decision. That's what you need. You don't want to be sitting there for 3-4 years waiting for them to call you for a visa interview or give you a decision. You want your decision at a reasonable time. That's what the government owes you. And that's what a mandamus lawsuit is going to do. It doesn't guarantee an approval. It only gives you a decision. And sometimes, like I said, we had a case where somebody was pending for a long time for their visa interview, and then after the mandamus, they received a request for evidence, which basically they could have sent it years ago, but they sent it only after the lawsuit. Eventually, after the response to the request for evidence, the case was approved, but their action was working on the case and requesting a request for evidence. But the whole point of this lawsuit is to force them to give you a decision, so you don't have to wait for so long to get information about your case, and doesn't for no reason. Can you file a mandamus lawsuit against an embassy or consulate? Another common question we have. A lot of you here on this webinar are pending your interviews before different embassies and consulates worldwide, and you kind of feel stuck. What am I going to do? I'm dealing with the embassy. I don't get any answers. Yes, you can. Mandamus lawsuits can be filed against the State Department, National Visa Center, individual U.S. embassies and consulates, especially if you are going through an unreasonable delay. You haven't received a decision on your application. They pulled you to 221G, admin processing. It's taking forever. You have no answers. You can do that. And they're not going to deny your case just because you filed a lawsuit against them. So a lot of clients are asking, what if you're working on your case, somebody else filed your case. It's been years. You're working with another attorney. Can somebody else file your mandamus? Mandamus is a separate matter. So even if you have another attorney representing you with your current matter, you can always have somebody else look in your case and see if you qualify for the mandamus, and then have somebody else filed for the mandamus. Like I said, it's, people always ask, well, what is a reasonable time to wait? It really depends on your case. Every case is different. It depends also, where you're from, at what stage in the process you're going through. It's important to evaluate it and see also what you've done. Have you done any other inquiries? Have you tried to expedite it in any other way? Did you get anywhere else? Is this your last resort? There are different things that people evaluate when we're trying to see where people get stuck with their cases before they're moving forward. But it's very important to know that there are options, and the mandamus, mandamus is one way to move your case forward when all other options failed. And this is a quick timeline. You can see what it looks like when you start the process. You initiate the case, then we send a suit to the government. It takes a few weeks for them to review it, maybe a month. Then we serve them. Then there is a response. Either they agree or not. If they don't agree, we can basically counter it. So the whole thing may take about 3 months or so until we have some kind of an idea of what's going to happen with your case. So it's fairly quick if it goes well. Again, government, sometimes will try to push back, but there are ways for us to continue to try to move it forward. Perfect. So we made to our goal to get to this presentation in 40 minutes and give us enough time to discuss and maybe get some questions from the audience, and maybe kind of like what are some of the common things that you see, Matt, people are asking typically, that you see people asking who are using the app, and sometimes slide in with questions?
Yeah, I think people really love hearing other people's perspectives that have gone through it, that have experienced delays, or that have tried expedites or lawsuits, and curious to hear how it went for them. I think that's why you see a lot of people going on Reddit. We have a lot of people in our discussion boards that want to hear others' perspectives and experience. And so maybe you could share a little bit about maybe a couple stories from your clients having gone through the process to expedite a case or through a lawsuit, and how it helped them in their scenario.
Yeah, I'm gonna share a few examples. I can see in the comments people are trying to get information. So before I'll jump into the stories. What we put on the screen here is a QR code. You can scan the QR code. You get into a link where you can put your information, and one of our team members can contact you and help you schedule a call. It's very simple. It's just called askmyvisalawyer.com. That's where it's going to take you. So because you're on the call, because you're here live, you can go to this particular link while we are live, and after that, and request to speak with an attorney and schedule a consultation. So make sure you use that link, because it's especially designed for you guys who are here. Go to www.askmyvisalawyer.com. It's designed for you. So, I think one of the cases that we've seen was, a person with the embassy in Islamabad about last year. And, this person has been waiting for so long to get a visa interview. There was no reason. It was a U.S. citizen case. The person is a U.S. citizen who sponsored his spouse, and they just delayed his case for no reason. She went to admin processing for a while. And, after going through the mandamus process, and again, the person tried everything, but what it did essentially is it allowed the NVC to release his case to the embassy for an interview. They actually scheduled an interview for him, and he was finally able to be reunited with his spouse after, I think they had to wait like 5 years, which is again, it's kind of an unreasonable. Most people have to right now in this particular embassy in Islamabad, they're waiting about 2 years, 3 years, which again is a lot, but it's kind of an average. There was a interesting situation where a Turkish guy And he went through a citizenship interview. He had to wait for his citizenship interview for a while, but it wasn't unreasonable. But he waited, and eventually he went to his interview, and they questioned him about his marriage, and he passed. It was a long interview. He passed it. He got his. They said he was approved, and then it been almost 2 years after the interview. Nothing, no information. Eventually, Mandamus was filed, and he finally was able to get his oath ceremony. And again, there was no reason for it behind it. He was not a criminal. There was no, his background check was clear. Just like
they never came back and said why.
No, they don't say why. They
Wow.
just they, you know what I mean? So there's no reason behind it. So it's I-130 is a little bit more difficult to move forward, but sometimes if they're completely unreasonable, then it's possible. It really depends on where you are in the process. But right now, a lot of litigation is active with different embassies and consulates. Most popular one is, I would say, Islamabad and Lagos. Lagos has a lot of delays. There's no reason, there's an applicant that is a PhD, a researcher. He got his green card approved for employment, and they wouldn't. He got his I-140 approved, but he wasn't able to get his appointment to get his green card. And 2 years waiting in Lagos. And again, it just it doesn't make sense. There's no reason behind it, and that's the reason why so many people get frustrated with this process, because you think you're doing everything right. You go through the process, you fill the forms, you send everything, you hire an attorney, and then you just kind of stuck in a hole. And that picture that we put in the beginning of all these files in the cave. You think about it. Imagine your case is there and they just can't find it. I mean, there are quite a few cases that I'm sure that they lost, and that's why they're delayed. And eventually, when there's litigation, they kind of have to reproduce it and say, "Fine, we'll just give it to you." But they'll never admit that they lost the case.
Oh shoot! This turns out this was in the.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've got a question here from Marvin that I was thinking you could take on. He's curious about situations for family members of U.S. military.
Okay, so your husband is in the U.S. Army. She gave me his orders. Can I get some kind of visa to be with him while I wait for the NVC interview? So, unfortunately, you can always apply for the tourist visa. That's the only visa you can use to be able to come quickly. The problem is that, when somebody goes through the marriage petition, when you're in the NVC stage right now and you want to join your spouse, there's no specific visa for that. There's no visa to join a spouse. I mean, that they're talking about creating a visa like this, but I think in your case, because you're in his orders, I would try to apply for a regular tourist visa for a particular reason and explain why you're going there. And I think that the embassy might look at it favorably. We've seen cases where they did that, where people had to come here. For example, we had a case where it wasn't a military case, but it was somebody who was working for the government, and the person had to come for a court hearing, the spouse that was pending, and they let her in. They let her in to go for the hearing, and she came back, and she said, "I'm coming for a week." She came for a week. She came back. I see a lot of people asking for our phone number. Like I said, the best way to do it, honestly, because you guys are here at the live webinar, is just go to this link, www.askmyvisalawyer.com, or scan the QR code and leave your name there and your phone number, and one of our team members will contact you and help you schedule a call. That's the easiest way, because there's so many people here, and a phone number is just impossible to do. So just use the link. It's specifically designed for you guys who are here on the webinar. This link is not public. It's only for you. Perfect.
Jacob, I figured we've got a question here about just a typical timeline for an I-130. So this might help folks that have submitted an I-130 to sort of know, when are you outside of the typical timelines?
Right. So, again, Nabil, it depends on if you're inside or outside the United States. So if you're inside the United States and you're going through a regular adjustment for spouse, then a typical is 9 months. If you're outside the United States, right now, these I-130s are taking about 2 years average. It's not unusual for 2 years processing to go through for an I-130, right? Now, once you pass the 2-year mark, for a lot of these cases, then it becomes unreasonable. But again, it depends also what kind of petition. If you're filing for a sibling, sibling I-130s might take longer. It might take 2.5, 3 years, but it doesn't matter because the priority date is going to take 15 years to become current. You see what I mean?
So here's an example of someone that they got the
last
approval.
week. Jesus, very good question. I got my I-130 approved last week. How long until my I-45 gets approved? I sent my medical exam in March. Okay, so that's a good idea. So that's good information. So if you send your medical exam in March, I would say probably by October, by late September, you should be getting some sort of indication for an automatic approval, or maybe they're going to call you for an interview. Just so you know, more and more people are getting called for an interview again. It's not as common as it used to be before the pandemic, but with your timeline, I would say probably September, late September, early October for your approval for the 45 for the marriage. That's a good question. I like that you can kind of highlight it on the screen, right, Matt? It's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, this is awesome.
Ala is asking,
question.
I have 2 more years waiting for the interview in Morocco. In Morocco, for my fiance's I-129. How long do I have to wait a year? How long do I have to wait, please? I have 2 more years waiting. So this person has been waiting for 2 years already. Now remember, with the K1 visas were a little bit actually longer, taking longer than marriage cases for some reason. It shouldn't take less. So if you've been waiting for 2 years, again, Morocco is one of those. We actually have a couple of cases in Morocco where clients have been pending for about 20 months. So if you're 24 months pending, you kind of like on the area where you need to start making some inquiries. You should contact USCIS and find out before you get panicked. Just contact them because you're probably going to be close, unless there's an issue with your file, unless there was a request for evidence, which could have been, again, we don't know the details because you didn't tell us. But if there was nothing in your case and it's a clean case, you should be getting the approvals now, and the file will be sent to the next step to the National Visa Center. And again, I appreciate, I can see all the comments here. And that's why we set up the link for you guys, so you don't have to worry about calling or anything like that. Just use the link to book the consultation. Scan your phone or just go to askmyvisalawyer.com. Very simple. Put your information and make sure you mention that you were on the live, because we want to give you priority. If you were here live, we want to talk to you first.
So we've got an interesting question here, Jacob, about an issue with the doctor's office that
can you sue the medical facility for not submitting your completed medical? No, you can't. And I've had this question, and just to give you a background on this, a lot of these physicians are making mistakes. They don't sign the forms completely. They use outdated forms, and they don't, because you guys are getting it in a sealed, just so you understand, you're getting this medical in a sealed envelope. So you don't know what the doctor put in there, right? And as you know, Matt, when you get to that point where they open the envelope, oh my God, you didn't sign. You have to go back to the same doctor. That causes a delay. You cannot sue them because the doctors are covered, because they are USCIS approved doctors. You can't sue them because they are covered by this immunity that they have. And unless they've done something completely illegal, like for example, they've touched you illegally, they've said something, they ask you for a bribe, you can report them. But just because they failed to put a form, it happens all the time. They usually blame the volume. They get so many people come to them, and they say they get overwhelmed. So I've never seen anyone successful that was able to say, because the doctor failed to give me the form, my case was denied, because USCIS will tell you, fine guys, they made a mistake. That's okay. We're going to give you 2 months. Go back and get a new form. You know what I mean? It's going to cost you a delay in your case, but you can't sue the doctor for it.
So related question, you have a medical issue outside of the country, but
what happens with the Hague Embassy? It's currently closed, correct? Can we request an appointment in another country for a medical visa? Absolutely. Absolutely. So remember, I post on YouTube every week updates about different embassies and consulates. And the last time I explained about what happens is that if an embassy is closed, like Haiti, like Ukraine, you have the right to choose a different embassy to be able to go and get a different visa as long as you can enter that country. So before, the State Department required you to have some kind of residency in a particular country. Right now, you don't need that anymore. as long as you can justify the reason why you need to apply at this particular country. So because Haiti's embassy is closed, you can go to a different country. As long as you can enter, the US embassy should be able to entertain your application there. Absolutely. And most people do that. They will go to a different country and they'll explain the reason why.
So, question about someone who experienced a divorce and has submitted an I-45 application.
Excellent. So, question is, now my marriage is on the verge of collapsing, and myself and my wife have already filed for divorce. I would like to know what will happen to my 45 application since we have already filed for divorce. Any advice? So, it's a very good question. So remember, when we go to the green card process based on marriage, we're looking at the case in two different angles. One angle is what happens before the I-45 is approved, and what happens after you get your conditional green card. In this case, this is before. So if you get divorced before you get approved, and you didn't attend the interview, the issue is that you no longer qualify for the benefit of adjustment. So you're going to have to find a different way. So for example, another different way could be going through the VAWA petition, through the abuse. So for example, some cases we've seen where people who go through divorce, they go maybe through some arguments, maybe there's some kind of manipulation, maybe there's some mental abuse. There are different things that can happen, and maybe you'll qualify for VAWA to save your marriage, to save your case. That's why at this stage, when you are going through this kind of situation, it's important to speak to an attorney to analyze whether you qualify for VAWA or some other benefit that you can do before your 45 is completely denied, because there's going to be a point where they're going to ask you for more evidence and they're going to see that you guys are divorced. So you have to be proactive right now, but there are different options that you can do. So again, like I said, that's what we're here for. Speak to an attorney. Like I said, you're welcome to use our link and book a consultation with us. Go to askmyvisalawyer.com, mention you were on the live webinar, and you'll get a priority for your consultation. Wade is asking, I've been waiting a year now, and still there's no date for an interview. I did my biometrics. Do you think I should file a Mandamus lawsuit on USCIS, or is it too early? Okay, perfect. So remember, every case is different, but if you've been waiting a year, in my mind, is a little bit too early right now. Because if you look at the general situation where people are waiting, especially inside the United States, I told you, the average is taking about 9 to 12 months processing. A year is not too long for processing this. And again, what are you going to do? Are you going to follow up with USCIS? You should be able to follow up every 60 days. Make inquiries. Remember, I didn't mention this in the Expedite, but as a good practice for you guys, any case that you have that is pending, please make inquiries after you waited for 6 months. Okay, you waited for 6 months, you filed your case. After the 6 months, every 60 days, do an inquiry. What's going on with my case? Everything's okay. It doesn't hurt. And keep track of all these inquiries, because you might need that in the future if you decide to litigate or do anything else. What is the timeline for VAWA? So, VAWAs are taking a long time right now, unfortunately, because there's huge backlogs with these processing centers. I mean, right now, what we've seen is average of about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years for VAWAs. But remember, you get the prima facie application. You can also apply for work authorization if you file your VAWA with an adjustment of status. So you'll be able to work and live in the United States while it's pending, but they're taking a while right now. And that's just the reality. The same thing with U visas. U visas are taking close to 7 years. Asylum cases are taking 10, 11 years. This is crazy. They got to do something about this. Somebody's asking, Matt, if I-539 applications can be expedited. These are the cases that are pending for. So it depends. Typically, it's very difficult to expedite those cases, as I mentioned before, because the backlog and average processing time right now is about close to 7 years. So there are certain cases where we can, but it's not very common to do so unless there's a very, very good reason and the person is in a very particular situation to do so.
Here's one, Jacob.
My interview was scheduled in January of 2021, and when we came there, they told us that they have to reschedule it due to lack of officers. We are still waiting for this interview with no update from USCIS. You know, this is interesting because this is something that's been happening in a lot of immigration offices. I've seen this happen. It hasn't happened to our clients, but it happened to many people that came to consultations for me. And again, so the typical scenario, you go to the interview, they're going to say, oh, we're going to reschedule. We don't have enough staff. Or you go to the interview and they reschedule it because they don't have your file. Now, if this happens, you need to, again, follow up vigorously, try to get it rescheduled. This is too long. What's happened to you? 2021. This, Alessia, could be a mandamus case. I'm telling you, this could be a mandamus. It's no reason in the world that after they rescheduled it for no staff at USCIS, it's their problem that they didn't call you for an interview. Again, please reach out. I think that's a good mandamus. I'll be definitely happy to take this one on because, you know, this is a crazy one. But like I said, we had one where they came and they didn't have their file. Luckily, it didn't get up to a mandamus situation because we were able to follow up vigorously and we threatened them with litigation and they finally got it scheduled. But I mean, what kind of USCIS office is that where you get to the interview after waiting for a year and a half and they don't have your file? It happens more than you think.
So frustrating.
So Alessia, please reach out. Like I said, anybody's here. I can see all of you guys are trying to schedule an appointment or at least asking to talk to me. This is what we hear. Use the link on the screen, or simply go to askmyvisalawyer.com, put your name, mention that you were in the live, and we'll get in touch with you. Maiden, USCIS approved my wife and kids' cases back in September and was sent to NVC, but I haven't received anything from NVC. They haven't created my case. I have no invoice number. Okay, so what I would do for you first, before you do anything, NVC has what is called a public inquiry form. You go to that form, you submit that inquiry that you just mentioned, and you keep track of that. What's going to happen is after 30 to 45 days, a person from NVC will reach out to you, and then they'll give you some options. But you have to do that first. If you don't do that first, they're going to say that you never contacted them to alert them about the issue. You need to have proof that you put them on notice that there's an issue. If this doesn't happen, then there may be other things we can do, but I would do that first for you as a first priority. All right, Matt, we are reaching the hour level. I think we should conclude it because there are thousands of questions. Like I say, if you guys like this, I'm sure we'll do more webinars in the future, other topics. Again, I want to make it more interactive like this, so you'll be able to kind of get a feeling of what it is to speak to an attorney. But we'll probably do more of these, and Lawfully is at the cutting edge of immigration tech right now, with keeping you updated. Like, what more you need than knowing what the status of your case, and what better app than Lawfully to do so? So I would encourage people to download this app, and so you stay in the know. And I know you guys are working on big things moving forward, so I'm sure you'll see it announced by Lawfully. Big things are coming. Any parting?
Thank you so much, everyone.
Before we close it for the people who are desperate or losing hope.
I know that
stay strong.
I think about this a lot. I've worked in immigration for a decade.
You did.
And you've worked in immigration even longer, and it feels sometimes that you are just doing everything that you can to help people in a broken system. And I wish that the laws would just change. I wish people would get green cards when they graduate college. I wish that, the government would allow way more people to come into this country and just give them work permits and, let them, go after their livelihood and help support their friends and family. Unfortunately, there's only so much we can do within a broken system. I will say that we will do everything that we can. There are people out there that want to help, like Jacob. Follow his channels, reach out on askmyvisalawyer.com. We'll do everything in our power, and don't lose hope, because there's always an option. There is always an option to keep moving forward. And life can be really hard sometimes, so many ups and downs, but it'll get better. I'm from Salt Lake City in New York today, but I helped a lot of Venezuelan families that were arriving just a few months ago in Salt Lake. And I helped one family that they arrived. I picked them up at the airport. They were a family of 4, one tiny duffel. They didn't have anything else. And you know what? Now they have a car, they have an apartment, and they've helped 5 other families. And so don't lose hope. there's a path forward, and we'll do everything that we can to help. So thank you, everyone, for joining.
Absolutely. It was an amazing webinar, and thank you guys for the thousands of you that signed up and showed up. We're proud of you, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Matt.